Hi, good Friday for all of us. And this is This Week in Mormons, the international episode with the Daniels.
Woo!
So
Hello.
we're
I
happy
hope.
to be here just after a week of general conference. So there's plenty to cover today, and we're expecting to have hopefully an interesting episode for all of those who have the opportunity to listen to us through Spotify, YouTube, and all the social media channels you already know. So you're
Whatever
more than
you get
welcome
your
to,
podcasts.
yes. So you're more than welcome to subscribe if you haven't. And of course, if you want to check on the more specialized content that we cover, also, you can do it through Patreon as well. So, Dan, how was your general conference experience this last weekend?
Well, it was very busy. It was good though. And before jumping into that, now that you're talking about all the content and resources, uh, Twim did a great general conference recap um, after after every episode. So if you want to recap General Conference not just by listening to it, feel free to go listen to our immediate reactions to the sessions. That was really fun. All of the hosts of Twim took part in different sessions, so that was really fun to do. We had some crossovers as well there, where I hosted one of those with Matt from the Twin siblings. So go back to that one after finishing this episode though. But yeah, my experience was busy. That we watched one of the sessions in the chapel,
By the
at
way,
church.
let me remind the listeners and the people that watch us on YouTube that Danny is a bishop in UK, so he has also like an extra uh,
An
importance in
extra,
the
yeah,
process of, yes,
I wouldn't say importance, but yeah, responsibilities.
responsibility.
We
Yes,
debated with the work council whether we wanted to show it in person. Like, we hadn't done it for a long time, not just because of COVID, but before COVID we had stopped. But we about a year ago we found that there was a small demand for it, but a demand nonetheless, and that some members appreciated having the chance to go and watch it with others. And this last Saturday, we did it in the evening for us. So Saturday morning, the first session, we watched it in the cultural hall. A few families came with their young children. It was like a picnic type of setting. We ordered some pizza, so it was very unconventional, but it worked out
that's
quite
that's very,
well.
that's very nice. I mean, and also for the listeners that are from Utah, we're talking about 7 hours difference between
Yeah,
Utah time and the UK. So it's it's nothing trivial at all. It
yeah.
is a huge difference between the Saturday morning session and the Saturday morning session for UK members. So yes,
Yeah, it can get really confusing when you say Saturday morning session at 5 p.m. but
yeah,
people
that's for sure.
arrived. People arrived, and that was really nice. And then on Sunday, we also showed the evening session. So the very short one that we had when Elder Suarez spoke, we showed it at 10 a.m. and we had a different cohort of members arrive. And that one was a Sunday. We didn't bring pizza or anything like that. It was like
Yeah,
also to
that's
ensure
okay.
that people that turned up at church that might have forgotten his general conference, because it happens, they would have something to do and not just find a closed chapel on a Sunday. So that worked out quite well.
That
How
could be
about you,
a
Danny?
potluck. That could be a potluck next time on a
Yeah,
Sunday if
actually,
you want. Yeah.
what they used to do, and that was very common across the UK, I understand, is that on Sunday morning at 10, Relief Society would get together. They would have a big breakfast, and they would watch the Relief Society or the women's session. You know, the ones that we no longer have, unfortunately. They would get together and watch it with the women of the church, and that was quite nice. I never went for obvious reasons, although it would have been nice. But yeah, we no longer have those sessions, so can't really do it. I would say that was like a tradition similar to like the tradition that many have for, or they used to have for the priesthood session, and then the rest of the family used to like go have ice
Yes.
cream. I think that that's like a thing in Utah,
Yeah. I
or other
mean,
places.
here, the tradition in the ward where I'm currently living is that before the Saturday morning session, the bishop gathers all the young men and young women to have breakfast in their house
Oh,
before. So you they watch the Saturday morning general conference session together. So they have breakfast together, and then they watch the first session altogether, which
yeah,
I think
because
it's a very good bonding experience. I mean, in general, all the experiences that allow us to be with others that we're not usually with on a more extended or more relaxed setting is always welcome and needed, and especially I've been thinking a lot about this sense of community that we should have in the church. I mean, church is a spiritual endeavor mostly, right? But we should never forget that it's also a human social experience in itself.
Yeah.
So sometimes we just think I go there because of my beliefs, because of my covenants, but there is a very powerful community component, and we shouldn't forget about it,
And
because
for
church is more than the doctrine and the covenants, but also the people, right? The people we interact with, and
I
they're
mean,
like fellow members and friends.
I agree 100%. And there's an ideal that sometimes we do lip service to, which is the ideal of Zion. Right? And Zion by default is a community. It starts with that, right? And actually, speaking of that, we're not going to do like a full conference recap. Go back to the episodes from last week for that. But there was a talk that I think it was Elder uh, Gong that talked about, well, many things, but one of the emphasis that he gave was about church activities and an activities committee, and like kind of giving ourselves permission to meet and, for lack of a better term, have fun, like kind of removing the shame from. Sometimes we feel a bit of a pressure that every activity or everything that we do should have a spiritual component. And I think by definition, being a community is an objective in and of itself that's worthwhile pursuing. Right? Of course, we want a balance on everything, but in a way, he was like, do things together. I need to go back to that talk to remember exactly the full message there, but I really appreciated that. We set up an activities committee over a year ago, before the previous bishop was released. So all credit to him, to Adam. Hi, Adam, if you're listening. That had the foresight of saying, we're coming back from COVID. We need to build community. There's a big need for it. And the need remains. And we've called a great activities committee that have helped us do much of that. So it felt validating, because at that time the church handbook had just been updated and kind of reintroducing the possibility of having one after over a decade. I think that it was scrapped, and it was like, work councils take care of this. And then it was a dilution of ownership, and for many it worked, but for many didn't. And I'm happy to see that activities committees have been validated again from the pulpit of general conference.
I've had like very extreme views about this. One extreme view is that we're not I don't know, an event
Yeah,
organization,
yeah,
so
an event production company.
an event production organization.
Yeah,
So we shouldn't be investing time, energy, or effort or resources, if that is the case, into doing so many activities. But on the other hand, I think if we go to the other extreme, right, where no activities are done, then what sense of community can we build up on a 2 hour period where we just have our whole adoration session, which is the most important thing, and then classes where we're also divided, right? So, I mean,
yeah,
I think our parents back in the 70s, right, when they started church, they had like a full week of church. Like they went on a
yeah,
Sunday, they went on a Wednesday, they went on a Saturday, right? And they had different activities and different sessions for different days. And church absorbed an important part of their life. And
yeah,
that's why they were so committed, and they felt like they belonged to a wider community, right? And I think currently these days, on this idea that life has many things to be done and it's so busy and we're always very connected through social media or whatnot, people tend to think that we don't need those kinds of activities anymore. But on the contrary, my perception, my personal take, is that it's the total opposite. That we need more of that. We need more of that community. We need more of the older people getting together with the younger people. We need
yeah,
more of the word activities where all of us are interacting in a more relaxed, let's say, extended setting. So
yeah,
I welcome that with all my heart. And I'm an advocate on pursuing activities, even
yeah,
even smaller ones like potlucks or linger lungers or
yeah.
whatever kind of small activities you can do for the sake
Well,
of people to have time to talk.
in Chile, it used to be quite common, and I haven't seen it here or in the US in the same format. But just doing a war family home evening, just get together, sing some hymns, have a class, then have food and games. That's it. As simple as that. There's no theme, there's no big planning, but you get together. Um, I think that, to me, it's a little bit the pendulum between church supported and home centeredness that has been kind of the big vision and strategy, so to speak, from the institutional church for the last few years, half a decade or more, which I think when it was released, I think the natural reaction was to swing the pendulum towards the home centeredness of it, right? Because it came along with the shortening of the church block of meetings and a number of other things that simplified and removed church, a kind of small government but small church. Now,
But also, I mean, pandemic provided a
yeah,
very good shock. I mean, the shock of the pandemic was huge. I mean, we were moving towards home centered activities, which is all good. But then the pandemic hit, and that was an external shock, nothing to do with
yeah,
church related things. It's like, this is what happened. We were isolated and we had to, right? And then you just follow that tradition that was imposed externally, and then you stop getting together, not because it's not reasonable, it's just because you were isolated for 2 years.
yeah,
So
and probably home centeredness worked well and served its purpose as a core focus between this pendulum between the two. Now we're fortunately mostly past that phase, and the evident like the need for community becomes much more evident. And I'm glad to see the pendulum shifting a bit more to the church support side of things, because I think we have neglected it, and it's good to like recognize it. And one insight that I heard from, actually I didn't, that was my wife. She heard from one of the sisters in our ward. She was talking to us, uh, and told my wife, "Look, you guys are the minority." And when she said "you guys," she was referring to a married couple that had children, right? The nuclear family, the ideal thing. And she was absolutely right. If you look at the demographics of my ward, that is a minority. Mostly we have single sisters, single brothers, divorced couples, students, people that are kind of transient in the world that are coming for work temporarily, and a level of diversity in that sense that truly catering to nuclear families, you're missing out on like 60-70% of the work community. So the church support becomes crucial there, because that is the like that becomes the family, right, from a spiritual sense, or from a religious sense at least. I'm not saying that they don't have families, but you know what I mean. So yeah, I welcome that renewed focus. And do you have any other comments on conference, on any talks that stood out now that it's been a few
yeah, I mean,
days?
yeah, I think, I mean, at this point, I think they all fuse in like a one big talk.
Yeah.
I usually get notes. I don't have my notes with me right now, but I'm
Got
thinking
you on the spot.
of a couple. And I mean, we were talking with my wife about how the participation of leadership that is outside Utah is significant, is relevant, and it provides a different flavor, right? I
Yeah.
mean, my perception so far, or my take so far, is that when they talk, it shouldn't be like that, but my attention is higher because I'm interested in hearing what their experiences are, and how they perceive the church experience they had in their own home countries, and also the fact that when they mention their local experiences, it resonates higher, better
Yeah.
with me,
You
right?
you feel
Because
seen. Yeah.
yes, and I feel like I can connect with those experiences, right?
Yeah.
I mean, words of, I don't know, 300, 400 people are not the common trend back in Chile. So when I hear them, and I hear those significant but yet more relatable experiences, are in a way, powerful to me. So
Can I say something on that? Uh,
yes.
or yeah, very very quick, because that reminded me of, I think it was Elder Suarez that spoke about prejudice and kind of extended the much of the latest teachings on that, and the emphasis on uprooting racism and prejudice of any kind within our church community, right? And at one point, I might be mistaken. Please, listeners, fact check me if I'm wrong. But this is what I heard and what I felt when he said something along the lines of prejudice and things like that. And he said something like, "I know it because, uh, you know, it's happened to me. Like he didn't say it that way, but in a way he kind of said like, I know this firsthand. Like I've experienced what it feels like to be, you know, treated differently. Again, I might be wrong. I need to go back to it to see what phrase or what paragraph or what he taught was that he said that made me think that. But when that happened, I felt like, yes, like we have somebody that has had similar experiences to me from a very senior standpoint saying it, and and it's edifying. It's not challenging or kind of it's not a grievance, but it's making it real and an invitation to be better and implement those principles that are yeah.
Let me reference it with something that has nothing to do with church, what has to do with the training I'm getting as a student here in the US. I mean, lots of ethical issues and training issues related to treating others that are different and to welcoming diversity have to deal with that. Like humans naturally will tend to get together with the ones that they consider closer to them or more similar to them, right? Like
Mhm.
animals with the same animals, right? I mean, so when we're challenged to interact with others that are different from us, we are scared because we don't know, right, how they are, how they will react towards our interactions and whatever. So it's an honest invitation to all the members of the church to be more welcoming to those that are not similar to you, that are, those that are different from you, right? And when we're thinking about diversity in a church that is a worldwide church, we're all different, right? We think we're similar, but we're all different. We all have different backgrounds. We all have different experiences. So that is a stronger invitation for all of us to reconsider, to re-educate ourselves in terms of the importance of the difference, right? And being different is different. Sorry, being different is good. I always dreamed of this Benetton church. Sorry if I'm using a brand, but my intention here is simple. A church that has different colors, different shapes, different bodies, different characteristics. Right. I'm not looking for a church that is full of clones, or everyone is equal, like same haircut, same colors
Yeah,
in
like a
their
mold.
dresses. Yes, I'm looking for a church that is diverse, that is welcoming to all of those who want to adore and worship in the way we try to, and all of those that are striving to live up to the standards and to strive
Hmm.
to honor their covenants, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean that if you're not honoring your covenants, you're not welcome. And that's sometimes the impression we provide to others. Like if you're not up to what I am living, then you're not welcome, which is the total opposite of church teachings. I actually remember one of the talks, and I don't remember who,
Mm.
but I think the 70 that is French and works at BYU, and
Yes.
he referenced one of the primary songs, right? That if you're different from me, I mean, you're welcome, and I'm not making fun of you if you talk different than me and if you walk different than me. So that's the church I believe in. That's the church I've been raised to live, right, for. And even
Yeah.
myself, I mean, I'm the most exotic guy in my ward, right? Most of the yeah, so most of the people there are white Americans that are like born
Yeah.
and raised here. So obviously the invitation is that we're, I mean, all of us are welcome at church no matter
Yeah.
our circumstances. And again, it's something that we need to work on
Yeah.
ourselves. It's
We're
something that
quite
doesn't come
cognizant.
naturally.
I'm glad that it's being named and said as an ideal to reach, and I think it's fully aligned with the concept of Zion, as I said a few minutes ago. I'm very cognizant as well that it's not a reality everywhere, and in some places it's very far from. And that's because we have a lot to learn. When you read in the Book of Mormon that Alma went to preach to different cities, he found Sarembla that got a big talk in Alma 5. Then you got Gideon, who was doing just
Gideon,
fine
yes.
and got a nice talk. And then in Ammonihah, they tried to kill him, right? So there was a lot of variance. And it was the same church. And then King Noah, before that as well, they had the priesthood, but they were wicked. So we need to become, in my opinion, more accepting of the fact that we're the research church of Jesus Christ, and within it, there's a lot of variance, and we have to be real about it. But it's good to hear from conference some of those principles. Now, the last thing I want to say about conference, can't believe we ran 20 minutes about it, but
Yes.
uh, I think to me it felt like there were some very key points in the narrative, some of which I really, really welcome, and others that I felt that were a little bit more challenging. Like in full transparency, it was. I've had to think a lot about some of the talks and the way that they were delivered, um, and I know that that's true for many other members as well. So we're cognizant of that. We don't have time now to delve much on it, but I do have one question, Danny.
Okay.
There's a new catchphrase in the church, and that catchphrase is "Thing Celestial" from President Nelson's talk. Which, by the way, I wasn't sure if he was going to be able to give one, and we know that he had an injury recently, so it was great to see him that he was physically able to be there and do it. Now, before saying anything on my end about the phrase specifically, what are your thoughts? Do you have anything to share
Yes,
with
I
the
mean,
audience?
I was playing around with my wife and telling her, like, I don't know, kids had a mess at home, and then
Ah,
think celestial, and then, and then we had a very busy week this week, and then, well, think celestial, right? I think it's there is a very delicate balance, right, between understanding this as a personal motto and treasuring it in your heart, and then trying to live up with it, and using it as a solution to all the complex and nuanced circumstances of a daily life, right? So what I consider is that there are no simple solutions to complex endeavors, right? So that being said, I think it's not a good idea to think that the prophet invitation for all of us of thinking celestial will sort out our most complex challenges in our daily lives just by thinking celestial, right? So I sustain the prophet. I take things celestial in my heart, and I'm going to try to live up to it, but I'm not going to use it, right? As a word, right? As an
as a
expression, because
phrase, yeah, yeah,
as a phrase, because it's more, in my perception, will be more damaging than uplifting, right? I mean, we're all trying and we're here for that sake. Like, I mean, I'm adoring and I'm living up to my covenants because I believe in that. I believe that if I work hard, if I try my best, I could be with my family forever together, right? And that's my expectation, but that's personal, right?
yeah.
And because of that, if I externalize it and say, hey, people, watch, I'm living up to my covenants, and I'm gonna become a god with my wife and my kids, right? It's not something that you say and show it to others. It's something that you keep in your heart, and you try to work towards that goal, and there will be good days and bad days. And the same, in a way, I take it as in the same level with things celestial. I'm trying
Mm.
to think celestial. I'm trying to be, and I'm trying to act
To
like
keep an
Jesus Christ
eternal
did.
perspective, and in the end,
Yes,
that's the
yes,
underlying principle.
yes. Or as I said, I'm trying to act like Jesus, but sometimes I can't, right? I mean, I try, but I can't. I'm not physically capable of it, right? So, but that doesn't
Yeah,
necessarily mean that I'm not striving towards it. So
yeah.
that's my take.
I really
What
like
about
the
yours?
framing you gave to. Well, I think I feel very much like you do. I hadn't thought of it with that frame of reference, so I don't have much more to add to it. But uh, I'll say one thing. I've spoken with people that love the talk. They were like, "This is really what I needed to hear. Needed a reminder of the eternal perspective that I need to put on my life." And I can and I do get behind that 100%. I think that that's that is an eternal good principle, right? And a good life skill as well. Uh, but at the same time, I have a personal, and this is mostly personal, not really doctrinal or anything, have kind of a personal aversion to catchphrases. And I feel that gradually over the last few years, we've fallen into a culture of leading through catchphrases that it doesn't sit very well with me. I know that previously with President Monson, many people didn't really resonate with his way of teaching just through anecdotes and personal stories and things like that, and others loved it, right? So there's like a prophet for each season and for different types of people, and but progressively so. More than the message, I think that the impact on us as a collective community of faith we take those phrases and weaponize them, and that's the risk that I see with this phrase, is that I see a very high potential to weaponize it to suppress um, things that are really important and necessary. For example, uh, people that apologies, sorry. For example, people that are struggling with um, with grief, right? And you know, thinking celestial or having an eternal perspective, uh, of course, it helps, but it's not
It's
mutually
not going to
exclusive.
take the
So
pain away.
yeah, there are some parts, but I believe that the use that it will be given by many, unfortunately, will be the unhealthy use of saying, "Don't worry, like how come you're nothing celestial, right?" And all that. And I think we need to recognize that. And there's an article. This is the first article of news that we're quoting 25 minutes into this conversation, but I read a guest post that I think reflects a lot of how I feel about the talk uh, in the Exponent 2 blog. The title is "Some Unintended Ramifications of the Well-Intended Message to Think Celestial." So I'll direct listeners to that article. I think it touches on just one of the paragraphs on the talk, and there are many that created a lot of conversation on the talk. And I think it does a really good job of saying, look, the intended message is important and can coexist with the other elements that the message leaves out that can become really unhealthy and that we need to probably address. And one of the recommendations that the guest, the writer of this guest post in that blog says, it's a recommendation that I want to know what you think about it. The author says, I believe that if General Conference talks were reviewed and vetted by a panel of diverse, experienced therapists based on a criteria of sound mental health principles, that this practice would yield so much good fruit. It would be well worth whatever investment, time, energy, money was required. It would save lives, the author argues. I mean it, they say. How many lives have been lost to suicide and influenced greatly by rhetoric in conference talks? Talks have been studies that they then are studied in quorums and classes all year that unintentionally fed cycles of shame, self-hatred, perfectionism, depression, hopelessness, and feelings of inadequacy, and not to mention scrupulosity that so many members are afflicted with. And I'm going to leave it there. It's a longer paragraph. Now, it's uh, it's an interesting idea because we know that general conference talks, with the exception this conference of President Baller's talk, that was a testimony. Basically, it was unscripted, but talks are scripted and they are reviewed and reviewed. There's a correlation process that goes into it, and what the author is saying might be worth having some mental health professionals doing some sort of review and providing feedback to make them better. What do you think of that? Do you think there's any merit on that?
I mean, no one is trained. I don't think the first presidency, the Quorum of the 12 Apostles, or even the 70s are trained in mental health, right? I mean, we believe in inspiration. We believe that these callings are appointed by God, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're professional specialists in
Yeah,
those areas. And in a world where so much understanding and so much special advice is needed, then I would welcome that. I mean, I was having a conversation, and this is probably off topic, but with my sister, and we were talking about how living up to the expectation of disciples of Jesus Christ was challenging for her. Like it felt like an extra burden, like something that she couldn't live up with, right? And again, I understood it, right? For after many years, right? After many years of not understanding her perspective, I understood, right? And she has the utmost respect and admiration about the church, but she's not active, and
yeah,
probably because that that goal of becoming like Christ was too much, and because of
hmm
that, she thought, well, this is too heavy for me. This is a too heavy backpack for me, so I would rather stay out of it, right? And I don't want any member of the church feel like that. I mean, my take on this is like that's the perfect example. I'm not perfect, so what I'm trying to do is little by little, right? Like
yeah,
step by step, I will try to, and that's my take, and I hope all the ones that are trying to strive to be better are taking that take, right? But for some people that are perfectionists by nature,
Yeah,
that is the goal, and I have to reach that goal as soon as possible, right? For me, a very imperfect human being, I'm just taking that perfect example as a beacon, right?
yeah,
As an opportunity to walk towards that light,
yeah,
and it will take me forever, right? But not for all of us. We get the same, you know, perception about things, and then I understand that, and I think we should be more
yeah.
cognizant about it.
No, that's great. My last words on this, and maybe after that we can go to some articles of news, would be that we know that for many people, myself included, General Conference was a great experience. It challenged us to think, to ponder, to turn to God for inspiration. I know that for others it was also challenging, and I can think of many that I know for whom this conference in particular would have resonated in a more difficult way with them. And just want to say that both reactions are welcome. I think as long as we turn to the real and final and ultimate source of comfort and truth, uh, I think we're good. So great. We just wanted to
We
give a
invest.
chance to listeners
Yes,
to see where we are on that, and to recognize that all reactions to it, as long as they're in good faith, I think they need to be known and heard. And I hope leaders are aware and cognizant of that as well.
absolutely. We invest 10 hours 2 times a year for that, so it's not
Yeah,
a minor trivial thing, right?
it's the big binge watch of our faith community. All right, let's go to
Okay.
some news. What do we have?
I mean, I
Well,
would like to.
can I say one
Yes.
more about, well,
Yes.
not conference but temple announcements? I guess we should. There were 20 temples announced. Long list.
That's a lot.
That is a lot. That comes with a lot. I think we spoke about it in one of the first episodes that we have with Danny about the number of temples being announced and the anxiety that it drives me, because I know those are expensive, and the operational cost of running them is a lot. But there was a temple announced in Viña del Mar, Chile, which is the city I was born in, and that was a
It
really
touches
special moment.
home in all the possible levels, right?
Yeah. Oh, for you, Danny.
Yeah, I mean, my parents live in Villa Alemana, which is very close to Viña del Mar, and it's powerful. They're temple workers, actually, my parents, and I was thinking, I was talking to my wife about a temple will take around 7 to 8 years since it's announced to be fully dedicated
Hmm.
and ready to be operating, and I hope my parents are alive
Yeah, I
to
have
have a
the
chance
same
to
thought.
attend.
Same thought.
Yeah, to have a chance. I mean, my parents are 73, so 7 years, it's 80,
You're getting to your 80s.
81
Yeah.
probably. So I hope, because I mean, it touches my heart because they've been um, temple workers, and then for
Yeah.
them having a temple in their land, where they usually operate, they usually live, it's just amazing.
Yeah.
It's showing the maturity and the growth of the church all over the world, and how this will benefit their hearts, and will,
Yeah.
benefit the way they adore. They wouldn't have to do this long commute of almost 2 hours. It will be like 30 minutes from home, 20 minutes from home.
Yeah.
So I'm just rooting to that, and I'm just expecting for them to have the opportunity to be there when it's dedicated. I mean, I remember that the Santiago Temple was dedicated when I was born,
Oh, yeah.
and I understand that.
83, right?
Yes, they were there. I think I'm not 100% sure, but they were there. So, I mean, it will be very powerful for them. So, I mean, I
Yeah.
just love that, and the feeling that gives me, like.
Yeah. For me, my thoughts went straight to my parents as well. They're also temple workers. They're also like 73 to 74 years old, and 75, actually, my dad. And that's the city where my grandma, who passed away this year, um, she left her village with my mom as a single teenage mom, basically, to work there, to Viña del Mar. That's the city that she picked on the map, basically. And that's where my mom met the missionaries in 61, 62. She told me the other day they would show these film strips in the Quinta Rioja, which is this old building there in Viña. And she never really got the lessons. But years after that, she married this guy that had been baptized in the church. That was my dad. he had been baptized in Valparaiso, right next to Viña. Like all my family history goes to that. It's like the epicenter of my family, even though I left that city when I was 7, so I didn't really grow up there, but my thoughts were straight there and what it means to them. I mean, they're from the generation, just like your parents, that they build their chapels by hand, right? That they gave their donations in form of hours and money. And so the church means, not that it doesn't mean as much to us, but it means something even deeper and different to them.
Yes.
And I'm glad that they got to hear it, even if they don't get to see it materialize, which I hope they do. And it also made me feel a bit more humble about, and kind of turned me to repent a little bit, because I've been maybe a bit cynical about the volume of temples that are being announced, and kind of like, do we need that many? Like, I don't think we need that many, but then I thought
But at the
of
same time, it makes all the possible sense that we have as many temples as possible, right? And then they are accessible. I mean, the closest temple for me is 2 hours. It's 2 hours. I have 3 kids, right? There's
it's
no annex where I can put the kids. So I haven't been, I haven't been to a temple, and having a closer temple will allow us to go. I don't know, in
yeah,
odd times, in odd hours, to adore. I
yeah,
mean, we need temples as close as possible, just because we need to renew, to remember, right,
yeah,
and to be part of it. And do we need many? Sure, we need as many as church buildings. Like,
yeah. I think
they're
on that,
capable of, yes.
I do have some thoughts, and I go back to kind of this operational cost, but more from the operational cost standpoint. I'm thinking of the labor intensity of it, because having this footprint of temples, that means that you need a big increase in temple workers as well. So there's an implicit strategy behind it, or an unintended one. I don't know, but we're going to need more temple workers. So the temples are going to become, we can't avoid them to become a much more central part of our worship, which comes with a lot of other considerations, right? Are people going to go for it? It's
Yes,
a very
but
different level of
with a
investment,
with an
and I
aging
wonder
with
how
an
that's going
aging
to evolve. Yeah.
yes, with an aging population, and with
Mm.
better work circumstances, I think we will be able to find a way. We'll be
Yeah.
able to find a way to have more temple workers and to have more people participating and helping around.
Yeah, and also there's
That's
been a simplification of the ordinances to the point that not as many
are
workers are
needed.
needed now to run a session and things like that. But a big shout out to all of those that are in areas where temples were announced. We hope you are as delighted as we are with the Viña del Mar temple. We know two in Peru, one in Mongolia, many in the Pacific Islands, and a few in the US, and many in Africa as well. So a big hello to the global church that is getting the blessings of temples in their land.
Let's go to the hymn book. And
Yeah,
this is something that is beautiful in its essence. And I don't know if you remember, in Chile we used to have a red hymn book. Then we had like a brown hymn book, and the last hymn book we had was the green one.
yeah, the
And
current one.
the current one, and we used to laugh about some of the translations there we had in some of the songs, and lots of things about it, and this cultural thing about, learning the hymns, and learning the words, and the phrases, and finding out when I served the mission that the English version has 400, 300. Correct
Yeah,
me if I'm wrong. 341.
354. I don't know. 41.
341. 341, and the Spanish hymn book has 209.
209.
So we have,
Well, actually, Danny has 210, because 210 is Buscad con fe, which in Spanish means search with faith,
with faith. Yes, that
which
was
was
the
a running
usual.
joke with missionaries and with members. Like, you were teasing people to look for the hymn that doesn't exist. So keep searching with faith. Not really funny when you say that way, but
But it is what it is.
it is one of the most established church jokes in the Spanish speaking world, just so you know. But maybe for some context to listeners, we're talking about the announcement just last week, I believe, was it, that
Yes,
finally we're going to get a new updated hymn book. This was announced in 2018, I think, that they were going to start preparing for one, but now we have dates. The first few hundred are going to come out in next year, I think, 2024.
yes.
with the full version fully released in all the languages in 2026, so 3 years from now. And it's going to be fully harmonized. So this whole variance between Spanish and English and other languages and which hymns are here and not there, that's going to be a thing of the past. They're taking the time to have a unified hymnal for children as well and adults. So kind of like the "Come Follow Me" of music. What do you think, Danny?
Yeah, I mean, I love the fact that we're going to have also the children's hymn book integrated, because it's also a matter of, I don't know, practicality. You know, you're not bringing both books in your purse or in your backpack, right?
Yeah,
I mean, we have them here, but still, you need to open two different tabs to
yeah,
check
it's
them, right? And it's not like that intuitive or that easy to access, right? So I think that that's one significant contribution. The other significant contribution is that we'll benefit from this unified. It's like, I don't know, reading the scriptures, right? You need a unified system of reading the scriptures, so everyone will access the same number or the same, you know, reference. So it's something that I think is another step towards a global church, and I think I welcome that. I love that. And I, I was thinking about a couple of hymns that are in Spanish, that are not in English. Plenty of English hymns that are not in Spanish, and it nourishes my heart, because I believe myself a very musical person, and I always I was always excited about listening the Mormon Tabernacle Choir or the Tabernacle Choir now,
at
singing
Temple
hymns that I
Square.
didn't,
Yeah,
a Temple Square, that I didn't know, right, or they were unfamiliar to me because they were not part of the hymn
yeah,
book I had, right, and it was a very powerful experience in itself,
yeah,
and for me it's been very transformative. Actually, I would say that part of my testimony of the church also deals with the doctrine and the principles I've learned through the hymns,
yeah,
and how I get this uh, personal experience, revelation, and spiritual experiences in church meetings when I hear certain hymns, or when I need certain hymns to be
yeah.
sang, and to hear them is very powerful to me.
Yeah, I'm gonna say two things. That I actually have many things to say about it. Like for background, for those that are not that are listening and not watching it on YouTube or on video form, I'm a musician. The guitars on the background here give it away for those on video. And Danny, I don't think we've ever talked about our musical relationship either. So
Yeah.
Danny Ferreira, my sidekick in disco. He's the bass guitar player in the band that both of us have with my brother in Chile. He's the lead singer and guitarist. I'm the what am I? I was a
You are the
drummer,
multi
composer.
instrumentalist. You're the
Yeah,
multi
so
instrumentalist, yes,
I
and
make the
composer.
songs. Yeah, I make the songs. Not all of them. There are a few from my brother, but yeah, we've been making music with Danny for over a decade now. We have a band called Gran Capitals that maybe we can put the link in the show notes. Sorry for the self referential nature of this comment, but yeah, and we make alternative rock music. And but that uh, I'm saying that because music is pivotal in kind of my humanity. Like for me, music is like, if I would have had the guts to and the bravery to do it, I would have gone full on and being a musician. I was a bit more pragmatic, so I chose a business career instead to then pay for the guitars and things. But music, I think in musical terms, I'm making songs all day long, jotting down notes and things like that. And that goes back to my church experience. Like my introduction to music was through my family and through singing hymns. When I was 10, 11, I was already kind of doing barbershop quartets with my three older brothers, right? And I hadn't changed my voice yet. So I was singing the alto, right? I still had like this kid's voice. And that introduced me to choirs, to church state choirs, things like that, and ended up in doing that. I ended up missing a full
Meeting your
week.
wife. You met your
Yeah,
wife through a
I ended up
choir.
meeting my wife in a church choir for an event in the Chile
Imagine,
Temple
yes.
Square, right? And so did my brother Roberto. Which, long story short, that leads to you meeting your wife, and so the experience of music in the church has been ingrained. Oh, I was gonna say, on my senior year of high school, on my first semester, one week I just didn't go to school for a week and a half. Why? Because I stayed home making arrangements for state conference. I was like, Mom, I need to stay because this state conference is really important. Elder Holland was going. It was when Elder Holland lived there. And I don't know what my parents were thinking. They were like, yeah, sure, stay home. And I stayed home and I wrote this arrangement for Abide with Me that I still have around somewhere,
Oh,
and with some kind of modulations and changes. And so my musicianship comes from my church experience, and some of the most spiritual experiences I've had that still ground me and are like an anchor to my belonging in church deal with music. So I'm really, really looking forward to what this will do to us as a community. And having said that, and despite my very positive experiences with music at church, I still think we do really poorly in a way from a worship standpoint. For example, in our ward here in the UK, we have a very heterogeneous group, demographically speaking. We have some families that have been not vocal with everybody, but at least they've brought it up to me that they wish that based on their cultural background, I think that's where they're coming from, that our church musical experience were a bit more worshipy, a little bit more lively, right? Because sometimes our hymns, and also there's variance depending on who you have that can play or can sing. There are some words that do really great, but still it is a very devotional and kind of quiet kind of type
yeah,
of singing and
because
worship.
I,
And
I
some,
get it because our structure is like that. I mean, we welcomed besides piano other instruments very recently.
yeah,
In the
yeah, yeah.
past, it was just piano.
It
Like
was
we
hard
couldn't
coded that
have it.
only piano and
Yes,
string instruments, I believe, and we kind of hard coded a lot of these traditions that I don't know where it comes from. I'm not a historian, but I think that the fact that the church was restored in the U.S. and the U.S. came from this Protestant background, I think a lot of those practices we kind of inherited them from mainline denominations, right? Methodism
yes,
and Lutheranism and things like that. That again, I'm not super familiar with, but it seems to me that our musical tradition is closely related to that, and absent of this charisma that other denominations have, that
nations.
when you
Yeah,
actually go to the scriptures, there's good doctrinal foundation for that type of worship, right? There's nothing against it, like Psalm 150, right? And others that endorse the use of a wide array of instruments, and some of our evangelical and other Christian brothers and sisters, they do quite well with that. One of the best shows I've ever been, live shows, was I can't remember the name of this Christian worship, but it was in the US last year. I think I mentioned it in one episode before, and they were just incredible. It's like, wow, this is very different from the way I worship through music, but this is great as well. So I wonder if this new hymn book and this kind of update to church music will lead in any new direction. And we shall see. Are there any hymns that you want to stay, that you want to be, that they get added or that they get kind of cross language? Any favorites, Danny?
well, my favorite is "If You Could Hide to Call Of."
Oh,
In
is it?
Spanish, yeah, in Spanish it was "Si tu alastrocidio," which is the worst translation ever. I don't know if you remember that, but
It's not even the same star. Like
yeah,
serious,
yeah, so
it's talking
yeah,
about, yeah.
but
Anyway,
but the first time I heard it, like it moved me completely because
yeah,
it has a different modulation. It's actually kind of different from the regular pattern of other hymns,
yeah,
and I loved how it dealt with some doctrinal foundations we've got that are totally different from the rest of other
yeah,
Christian denominations. So it was
yeah.
very moving for me,
It goes hard
and it's
doctrinally. Yeah,
yeah, yes. So that's one of my favorites. So I would
yeah.
rather have it in all the possible languages, right? Um,
I have forgotten about it. You know why? Because it used to be one of my favorites until it just got overused and overused and overused.
yes,
I
with many
actually
things in life.
One of the arrangements that I made during my high school years, that I didn't skip school for this one, but one arrangement was "If You Could Hide to Call Up," with a Spanish translation that it was not the one you mentioned. I think we came up with
Okay,
one that
you
worked a
did
bit better.
you did a better job there. Yes.
Yeah, but that's a good one for me. I know that a favorite in the English language as well is "Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing," that has gotten a
Okay.
lot of extra momentum in the last couple of decades with Mac Wilber's arrangement that we just heard in this last conference. I think
Yes.
in Sunday morning session, it closed
There were
with that
many
arrangement that for me,
90s. Yeah, there
yeah,
were
kind of,
many 90s arrangements. This General Conference, and it
Yeah.
was lovely. Yeah.
Well, it actually poses a question. Mac Wilber, the choir director who replaced Craig Jessup in 2008, I believe, but he was the assistant director with Craig Jessup so since 2000. So he's been there for 23 years. And I credit him for the flavor and style direction of all church music, at least at that devotional space, because his arrangements are the arrangements of the church now. You know, kind of fount of
Yes,
every blessing, Redeemer of Israel, uh, I believe in Christ, all these classics that came out in the late 90s, early 2000s that are the soundtrack
are
of many
hits.
missions, right?
Yes,
But they are of a very peculiar style that brought a more cinematic kind of vibe to what
John
the church
Williams
used to
kind
do
of vibe,
before.
right?
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly. Now he has a bit of a playbook. Like I know when he's going to modulate to a different tone, kind of by
but
because
still, I
yeah,
mean,
but
there's still yes.
what I want to say is that he's probably due to retire soon, right? He's probably in his 70s already. Fact check me on that. But and I wonder what's gonna succeed that because he's left a super 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 high bar in my personal musical opinion. So we'll see. I think we're approaching a time of big changes on church music, but yeah, I know that this hymn, "I'll come thou fount of every blessing," has been one that was removed from the English hymn book on the last iteration in 1985, I believe. Maybe on an earlier iteration, not sure. But because of this arrangement, he has gotten so much more exposure and momentum that I would argue is the top one or amongst the top hymns that
Top
people
10,
want back,
yes,
right? And to pay
yes.
whatever copyright rights and things like that to get it back on the hymn book. But yeah, we'll see how this develops. I'm excited. Happy to move on to the next one.
Yes. At Silicon Slopes Summit, Elder David A. Bednar tells Jazz owner Ryan Smith how a global church works.
Yeah,
So that's a very interesting one. I
this
saw
was right before conference, I believe, right? So last week.
yeah,
Yeah, on the 28th.
I think it was the previous week actually.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah,
But yeah,
it's September 28th. So I saw on Instagram Elder Bednar mentioning he's going to participate in the summit, and I was excited because it's a different context, and I think apostles uh, should
yeah,
reach a wider audience, and because they're apostles for the world, they're not
yeah,
apostles for church members, right? So having said that, I welcome them as apostles to have this tribune and this opportunity to share some insights and to share ideas with a wider spectrum of people
yeah,
that might be, I don't know, away from hearing them on general conference or whichever opportunity they have to talk about gospel principles. And it's also an opportunity to be more vocal about what we are as a church, right? What do we do as a church, and how this provides us with a whole array of opportunities to help others, to serve others, and to extend the hands of help around the world. And I understand that one of the things he mentioned was about church operations and how the church has decided to use the money that has been contributed by millions of members of the church worldwide to extend the work of salvation around the globe. And I think that's good. That's relevant. That's needed. I think we've discussed this before about
yeah,
how church uses the resources and the funds to extend, the work of salvation
yeah. And in a
throughout the
way,
world.
it's a developing topic. I think it's not the first and definitely not the last we're going to hear about it. And it's interesting that it's in a forum that is secular, right? That it's a business oriented, and I guess it begs the question of whether the message that's being shared is satisfactory to some, or it's or the optics as well of being on that forum is what one would expect of a church leader. And on that, I'm neutral. I've heard and read people that have been very against it, kind of saying, "What is an apostle doing on a business forum?" Kind of in a world where what we're trying to to look after through religion is to care for the poor and needy, right? And instead, we're kind of dealing with billionaires like Ryan Smith, which, by the way, used to be my skip manager when I worked years ago in his startup. I was employee number 126 or something like that. When Qualtrics was like 80 employees in 2010. I didn't last very long though. I sold the first licenses for them for Europe back then. And long story short, I didn't stay with them. Maybe if I would have stayed, I would have a bigger stake on that business. But yeah, Ryan's a
One
great
never
guy, by
knows.
the way.
Yes.
Great time with him. I was there for about half a year. But anyway, he was hosting this session with Elder Bednar. He talked about church finances. Talked about the big operational expenses. We touched on that when we mentioned temples a few minutes ago. He talked about also about the global church. It's an interesting quote here when he says, um, I'm quoting Elder Bednar here. He said, in my particular responsibility, we're always thinking 20, 30, 50 years down the road. And then it says, from that perspective, he noted that a possible change may be because of the significant growth and future in Africa. Again, quoting, saying, today the dominant language in the church is Spanish. I didn't know that. That's news to me. I mean, from what perspective, I think it's still a majority of members speak English, but anyway, he said Spanish. Then he says, I think in the future it might be French because of the growing number of members in African countries that are former French speaking colonies. So, and then he keeps elaborating on church finances and the use of AI and political polarization. So he covered everything. And I think that regardless of what we might think of the forum that was chosen to do this, I think there's value on hearing our leaders speaking about wider topics. I think we expect general conference sometimes to be the only avenue, and many people expect our leaders to speak about some of those more current event type topics in general conference, which could happen. I would also welcome that, but that's also a more devotional setting, and the fact that we're finding other channels through which have our leaders speak on real time about these things as well, a little less scripted, more unscripted. I think there's a lot of value on it. So really happy with that.
We have very limited time, and we've got a couple of more
We can do a bit of a
news to
shotgun
cover.
approach with the
So
next ones.
yeah, we've got three visitors from three different countries visiting church headquarters. We've got a cardinal, a Catholic cardinal from Rwanda. We've got a member. So Prime Minister of Samoa visiting church
Yes,
headquarters,
Samoa, which got a
and
temple now.
we've got the Hungarian president visiting church headquarters as well. So we've got three different dignitaries, right,
Yeah,
or people that represent very specific countries visiting church headquarters. And I don't know, what do you think about it? What do you
I
think
think it's
about
I think it's positive. It's good. I've seen the good of this type of diplomatic engagements that the church has led the way on. Going back to the 2000s in Chile, the church was instrumental in working with the Chilean government at that time. With Ricardo Lagos was the president. He was a center left leaning president. Elder Holland was the area president at the time, and they were towards passing a divorce law. Chile, for many years, didn't have a way, like, divorce was illegal for any reason. It was one of the last countries in the world that had such a strict law against divorce. And this was 2002, 2003, 4. I think the law passed in 2004 or 5 when I started my mission. So it's quite recent. And you might think, why would the church be lobbying and kind of working with governments to to work on legislation for divorce? It seems counterintuitive. But yeah, there was a need for it because many members that wanted to be baptized couldn't because they were locked to marriages
or what
that they
or
couldn't get
wanted to
divorced
be
from.
sealed or wanted to
And
be
yeah,
sealed with their spouses, their current spouses? Yes.
yeah, they were cohabitating now in a newly formed family, but they had no legal way to officialize that family. So that ended up at being a big needle mover for missionary work and just for families in general, right? The church, of course, had an interest on it, but um, I, I, I don't think
It
we have many
benefited a
people.
wider
Yeah,
population. Yes. Yes,
exactly. So
absolutely.
that was great, and in that sense, it's good to see that the church maintains these relationships and is open to those. I think there's an element of kind of an open question we don't have time to answer, which is in the case, for example, of Hungary. We know that that's a highly controversial
Extreme.
regime at the moment with pretty much an
Okay.
autocracy. In the fascism spectrum, almost, at least so allegedly, right? And uh, is there a line that we might draw as to whom we'll meet with, who will not meet with, I think begs the question, and I don't think we can answer that. And I think the church takes their political neutrality quite seriously, and as a result,
And
people
I,
will raise
again,
questions like this sometimes when they decide to meet with this or this dignitary.
and at this point, I think if we believe in this political neutrality, then the church has a responsibility to meet with all dignitaries from all
Yeah,
countries because it's a worldwide, it's a global church. So all dignitaries need to know what are our uh, goals as a church, and what do we preach, and what do we expect from our members, and what do we do to help others, right?
yeah,
And that means that all countries need to have an opportunity to visit church headquarters to get to understand firsthand, right? And avoid this myth ideas, or this word of mouth ideas about what church members believe or do, or whatnot. So I think it's a good opportunity for the church to again have these people visiting and understanding more of what we do,
yeah,
and I welcome that.
yeah. That is good indeed. Well, I just want to mention a couple more that we won't get the time to elaborate. You can go to the Patreon segment where we're likely to jump into some of these stories. One is the church helping open a new health clinic in Ukraine, which is done through a project called Project Hope, with funding and support from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter day Saints. I think it's great to see that there's tangible, on the ground support being provided in this war torn zone. Here in the UK, we're seeing this very firsthand. Actually, just this week, we got asked to support with some specific events and activities to support asylum seekers. That here in this area, there's a lot of work being done on that from both the Middle East and also now increasingly so from Ukraine and other areas. And I found that great. I think those are the things that we need to be doing more and more of.
More often, yes.
Yeah. And likewise, in September, all for women church general officers and leaders in religious society and women in primary minister across the world. There's a nice talk about it. And I also welcome and value that we're getting more visibility as to what ministry they are providing, and the voice and the unique perspective that our sister leaders are bringing. So, oh, we have some visitors before we wrap up.
Yes, yes, it's my little daughter that just came from
Hello,
school. So
the latest addition to
but
Twim.
yes.
Well, great. I think we're going to now wrap up to move to the Patreon segment, but we invite you to join, everybody. Any parting words, Danny, that you want to say before we close?
uh I really enjoyed this episode. I hope you get the chance to go through the news we covered, and always happy to
Yeah.
be participating, and hope to see you soon and hope to hear you soon. So I have background music. My daughter is here, so I think there's nothing else I can add to
I
this
love
episode
it.
today.
Well, that music, this
Thank you
was
for bearing with us today.
no,
I
we're
really enjoyed this episode. Thank you.
yeah, no, I'm loving the music as well. I think it's great for the outro. It was a very musical episode as well. So thanks everybody for joining in. Follow us on social media. Send us any emails with any questions, feedback, and comments. I will welcome those. And for those that are Patreon subscribers, see you there. And for those that are not, you're invited to subscribe. It's great. See you all there. Great to see you, Danny, as well. Take care.
See you. Have a good
Bye
day. Bye
bye.
bye.